Hey guys, how you doing? And welcome to another episode of Arnold Space Station. As part of this episode, we're going to have a look at one of our other Salesforce partners called Breadwinner and how you can use Breadwinner and one of their applications to connect Xero, which is an accounting system, with Salesforce and have near real-time sync and capability for you to not only create invoices and send them out to customers if you do use Xero in your business, but also how payments, once they're reconciled, can update Salesforce. And then of course, we can also talk about some of the automations and things like that.
Salesforce Space Station.
Hey guys, so once you've logged into Salesforce, what you'll need to do is you'll need to navigate to the app launcher, which is the 9 dots on the left-hand side, and then click on View All. And in here, you'll see a button on the right-hand side on the pop-up, the app launcher called Visit App Exchange. Click on that. And in the App Exchange, we are going to look for something called Breadwinner. Now, Breadwinner allows you to integrate Salesforce with a range of accounting pieces of software. They also have a few other items as part of their product suite, which includes a NetSuite integration. But as part of this video, we are going to go ahead and have a look at how we can configure an integration between Salesforce and Xero. So I'm going to pick the Breadwinner, integrate Xero and Salesforce through Breadwinner application. I'm going to click on it, and this is a paid app, but it will allow you to install it and trial it out. If you need some contact information, that's there in the App Exchange, or alternatively, you can reach out to us at Out in the Clouds and we can make an introduction to Breadwinner. We also offer a package to allow you guys to go ahead and set up some custom configuration that we can have set up as part of this particular app installation and integration between Salesforce and Xero. So I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to click on Get Now. It's then going to ask me to log in again. And of course, I've gone ahead and set up a Trailblazer and as a result, an App Exchange profile as well. And that's going to log me in. Once it has logged me in, it's going to ask me if I want to install it in this org or Sandbox. Best practice when you're testing and trialing this out is to do it in Sandbox, especially if you're doing it for the first time. In this case, I am using a developer org, so I am going to click Install here. Now, there are some details. It is going to be site-wide, which means the number of licenses that you actually have are not going to be determined in any way. It's one license for the entire org, which means any number of users can use it. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to agree to the terms and conditions and confirm the install. Now, this is then going to give me a screen to ask me which profiles that I would like to have this particular piece installed or this particular application installed for. By default, it's going to select all users because it's not license-based. So I'm going to leave it at all users and click install. Now, this does use Breadwinner's service to be able to send the data back and forth in that sense. It is all secure, it's all encrypted. This just allows for that processing to happen. So as a result, I am going to accept this and click continue, and that's going to go ahead and start the installation process. Now, while the installation process is happening, in this case, we do not have a live Xero account to test with. So I've typed into Google Xero trial, and that's led me to the Xero trial. I can click try Xero for free, and I'm going to go ahead and sign up. I'm going to leave the phone number out. I'm going to ensure that I am not a robot and I do agree to the terms and conditions. It is going to still ask me for a phone number, so I'm going to put in a phone number. On the next screen, it's going to tell me, great, all you have to do is verify your account and you can start using Xero. So I'm going to go ahead, pause this recording and complete the verification process. And while we're doing that, we can see that that is still installing. So hopefully when we come back, both the application and the Xero account will be set up. So I've followed the process. I'm going to set up a business name. I'm just going to call this professional services for the moment. I can go ahead and edit things. And once you type it in, it's going to ask you for a few different things. I'm going to say IT professional services. I'm going to select no as employees in terms of do we have any. At this point in time, it's best that you have this set up with an accountant where possible, because there are certain settings that you need to make sure. As an example, if you are registered for GST or no, that's one of them. And then of course, if you have employees, you need to have that set up in your Xero account. What Breadwinner does, it's not going to mess with anything, but it just means if you have an accounting set this up for you or someone in finance, it allows you to ensure that your setup is compliant with your local tax and business laws. Beautiful. So as you can see, it's currently saying that we're on 30-day trial. If I go into the business section and then I go to invoices, you'll see that there are no invoices in here. And the purpose of this video is we're going to go ahead and have a look at how we can create some of these invoices. So I'm going to go back to Salesforce. I'm going to close this tab. I'm going to refresh the page. And I'm just going to wait for that email to come through that tells me that the application has in fact successfully installed. I've just got that email, and I'm going to verify this by clicking on the setup of the cogwheel on the top right hand corner, entering setup, and actually ensuring in the install packages under home and quick find, I'm going to type in install, that Breadwinner is in fact installed. So in here, we can see Breadwinner for Xero is installed. Awesome. Now that Breadwinner for Xero is installed, what Breadwinner does is it creates an application for itself. So if I click on the 9 dots and I click on view all with the app launcher, we should see a brand new app called Breadwinner. So if I click on that app, it's going to load that application for me in Salesforce. And once that application loads up, next to the home tab, there is a tab called Breadwinner. This is where we can set up some basic configuration. So I'm going to click on Breadwinner. And once the page loads, it's going to allow us to configure a range of things. Now, as part of this setup, we're doing a very basic configuration. We essentially just want to have the opportunity products sent through from Salesforce to Xero, and as a result, create an invoice. Now, by default, Breadwinner is going to put itself in read-only mode, so that way it doesn't start to mess with anything while you complete the configuration. It tells me it's got a 15-day trial, and the next step that I need to do is I need to connect Xero. So by clicking on Connect to Xero, now that I'm already logged into Xero on the same browser tab or same browser tab sequence, it's going to come up with this screen to allow Breadwinner to connect to Xero from Salesforce. So I'm going to click Allow Access, and that is going to create tokens and so on and so forth and save those so Breadwinner can use it. It's going to give you a success screen saying it's connected, and it's going to reload the screen for you. And this time it's going to have a tick under Space Station is connected, which is Space Station was the Xero org that we had set up, the business name. The next thing that we can do is we can create or set up some basic page layouts as a result. So I'm going to use this configurator to quickly set it up. I'm going to click Update Page Layouts. And as a result, it's going to take a couple of moments. It's going to add a set of fields to the account and opportunity, and it's going to add some related lists for the invoices. Great, so that's added. We'll check in on that in just a moment. The next piece is for us to assign the permission set so that people can in fact use Breadwinner and all its objects and any kind of Visualforce pages that might exist. And allow access to them so they can generate these invoices. So I'm going to go ahead and give all users the standard permission, and the standard permission is going to allow you to create invoices. It's got an additional section in here, which allows you to match any contacts from Xero, and as a result, their whole Xero transaction history to Salesforce accounts. So you can click on this, and in some cases, some of you guys might have none, like in this case, I've just set it up. So it's given me this particular page error, or in other cases, it's going to give me a whole list of every single customer that exists. And as part of that, we can do one of two things, actually one of three things. We can choose to sync the correct account from Salesforce to the correct Xero contacts. We can then choose to create Salesforce accounts if they don't exist in Xero. And finally, we can choose to skip or not sync those particular accounts based on your business rules and processes. So I'm going to click next, and this is just going to take me back and say, great, everything's successfully completed. There are no accounts to match, so everything's successful. It's going to take me back to this page. Now that we're back on this page, there are a couple of things that I'm going to show you on the front end when it comes to accounts, or in this case, clients and opportunities. So I'm going to go to the previous tab, and I'm going to click on clients. And if we go into a client as an example, you'll notice there is a brand new related list called invoices that it's automatically added. And by clicking on this new button, it does allow you to create an invoice record. Again, I wouldn't do it from here in terms of best practice to start off with. Best practice is to do it from the opportunity. So let's have a look at the opportunity. So I'm going to go into that brand new opportunity that we had in one of the previous episodes where we had a conga sign test. And you'll notice that there is invoices on here as well. If I click on this drop down, there is a new button on here as well. So it's created some of the default configuration for us that we can start using. Now, I'm going to go back to Breadwinner because there is still a little bit of configuration left for us to do. So on the left-hand side in the setup and config column, I'm going to navigate to configuration and click on Xero invoices. Now on this tab, I have a few different features. Breadwinner will allow you to create an invoice as a draft, which means someone from accounts or finance has to approve that invoice. Or we can have it created as an approved invoice, and send it to Xero automatically. Again, this can be dictated by a business process based on what it is. I'm going to allow for both buttons. We then have some defaults that we need to set up. So this is, whether the invoice due date is on a particular day or particular day of the month. So in this case, I'm going to say 5 days after the invoice date as an example. And then we have the ability to select the default Xero accounting tax type. In this case, I'm going to say that it is tax exclusive. Again, best practice is to check with your accountant and how you've set up your products, whether they're tax inclusive or exclusive. We then have the ability to select a default accounting code. Now we'll do a separate session on how you guys can customize these accounting codes. But in this case, we haven't set up any, so I'm going to select sales. And we then have the ability to select whether Breadwinner should create Salesforce accounts as record types. And in this case, I do have record type set up. So I'm going to make sure I select the right record type for the customer, in this case, business customer. Now, further down the bottom, we have the ability to use some of the default fields that exist when creating an account in Xero, which means you have an invoice reference number, a due date, an invoice theme, or an invoice date. And all of these can be customized based on a field value inside the opportunity. Now, we won't cover this in this episode, but we will have a separate episode that goes in through some of the advanced settings. So now that I've set up the basic fields that we need to create an invoice, I've set up some contingencies here in case something isn't selected. I'm going to go ahead and click save, and this is going to allow me to make those changes and save it. Now from here, if you want, you can click on a video walkthrough. If you want to understand some further things around what you can set up, certainly watch this video. On the left-hand side, there is a knowledge base. So if you click on that, it's going to load up a knowledge base where you can go in and search for things. It is highly customizable. Breadwinner does have a variety of tiers as well. And as a result of those tiers, you will be either limited to or have additional features provided to you. also have the ability to contact support directly from here and raise a support ticket. And this, of course, is billing. So we're on a free trial, so therefore none of that information is going to come up. So now that we've done the basic config, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the front end. So I'm going to go to the opportunity. I'm going to refresh the page to make sure some of those changes have in fact taken effect. And I'm going to attempt to generate an invoice now that this opportunity is closed won. So I'm going to click on the related list tab. I'm going to click new, and that's going to launch a new page, Visualforce page, that is going to allow us to have a few items selectable. Now, remember, we don't have any contacts set up. It's going to use the email address to actually create a link between contacts. So it's going to allow us to create a brand new contact in Xero, which means you're creating essentially a brand new customer account in that sense. And we have two options when it comes to the opportunity products, because we're doing this from the opportunity. We can pre-populate them with the invoice and opportunity products on the invoice. So the line items are essentially your opportunity products, or we can have a blank invoice and we can manually do this. So I'm going to select the default settings that are there, because this is best practice, especially if you have a simple use case. And I'm going to go ahead and click next. Now, because we're creating a Xero contact, what it's doing is it's going to copy across any information from the contact that is related to the opportunity. And this is, of course, the primary contact. So in this case, the primary contact details have been put on here, and it's going to go ahead and create that. Now, it's giving me an error when I'm trying to create it. This button is grayed out. And the reason for that is Breadwinner is currently running in read-only mode. So what we need to do is we need to allow Breadwinner to write back to Xero. So I'm going to go back to the Breadwinner tab. I'm going to go to Setup, and this first toggle that we have here, I'm going to flip this over. And when I flip it over, it's going to say that Xero is active. If you're ever worried about what happens when it's in read-only mode or no, you can always click on this link, and that'll give you some more information. So now I'm going to go back. I am going to cancel this, and I'm going to reattempt to create a Xero contact. So now when I click next, you'll notice that button becomes available in blue. So I am going to go ahead and click create Xero contact. And as a result, this is now going to create a Xero contact. Based on some of those details that I've put in 5 days for the due date, that has taken effect. It has selected the standard branding theme, and this branding theme is actually controlled by Xero. So whatever you set up, or whatever your financial controller or your accounting team is set up within Xero for your branding, which includes your logo and how everything gets laid out on the invoice, that is what it picks by default. It doesn't create a new branding theme or anything like that. It's then gone ahead and added down the bottom here the item, which is the product code, and that's going to create a Xero inventory item. And it's gone ahead and put into the description the product name. You can come in here and add some more details if you want. The description does not control the product inventory item, so you can add more details where required. You then have the quantity set to 1, which was again set on the opportunity. The unit price 30,000. It's defaulted the sales account or the accounting code to sales because we didn't specify one. So therefore it's gone ahead and set that. It's also put in the tax rate because we didn't set up any advanced configuration to pick this information. So as a result, it's set it also by default to tax exclusive, which is what we had selected. And that's gone ahead and made a calculation and added the tax automatically. Now, I'm just going to go back to that opportunity. So I'm going to go to opportunities, and I'm going to go to that Conga test one. We're just going to review a couple of things. So in the products, we can see there's only one SLA gold, one quantity, sale price is 30,000. As a result, I am in fact using the default from the actual account. So therefore it's picked up my details as the primary contact. And I'm going to go ahead now on the invoice and give this a reference. It's always best practice to give it a reference. It allows you, the salesperson, and also the customer, and also your accounting team to understand what this invoice is for. So this is in addition to your invoice number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the opportunity name and I'm going to put that as the reference. I then have the option down the bottom here to either create a draft invoice or an approved invoice. Now, in this use case, we're going to create an approved invoice and show you guys how the whole thing works. So I'm going to click on create approved invoice. And as soon as I do that, it is going to go ahead and create an invoice inside Xero. So we'll just have to give it a couple of moments and it's going to display this new page. Now this new page, it's given it an invoice number and it's picked the invoice number from Xero and its native convention. It's gone ahead and put in the line items. If there are any payments made, those will show up. But at this point in time, we've just created the invoice. It has set a flag. It's put in the due date, the reference, and as we scroll down, in here, we can see that it has created a Xero contact. It's associated that to the Salesforce account, and it's also linked the invoice to the opportunity and set the status to due. I can scroll down and have a look at the additional information, who the owner is. I can click here to see the invoice in Xero. I can see the invoice unique ID, the org name, the org ID, and a few other things around Xero. So if I click on this, it will take me to Xero, and it'll actually show me the invoice in Xero. Now, this is how I've loaded up by clicking on the actual link. But if I had to go to Xero natively, say I was in accounts, I just need to refresh the page. And in no time, you'll notice that that invoice has now been created. So I can click on it and I can see the exact same details. You'll also notice that now, because Breadwinner and Xero are connected, there will be a Breadwinner button that exists for any invoices created by Breadwinner. Now, I'm going to go back into Salesforce and we have a couple of different options. So the first option we have is we can download this PDF. So I'm going to download it and I'm just going to pause the screen share so you guys can see what this looks like. Actually, I'll open it up in Chrome itself. And again, this coincides with whatever branding you guys have set up and whatever layout you guys choose, if there are extra terms and conditions, so on and so forth. In addition to that, I have the ability to send this invoice as a PDF via email. So now natively, this is done by the accounts team. They will go ahead and send out the invoice, but in here, we can send out the invoice from Salesforce itself, which means a sales agent does not need access to your accounting system anymore, but they can have all the accounting information appear in Xero against the opportunity and against the account. And in here, it'll allow us to put in a subject and of course a body. You can type this out. If you're on a higher version of Breadwinner, you can certainly go ahead and select an email template that can be created from Salesforce that pre-populates all the information, and you can have a similar email template created as the one that goes out from Xero. In addition to that, if there were additional contacts related to that account, it'll go ahead and allow you to select more than one. It'll also go ahead and by default attach the invoice to the email. And in here, there is a checkbox that will mark this as sent in Xero. So I'm just going to put in some basic information in here. So the subject, I'm going to put in test invoice Arnold. And I am just going to go and put in, hi Arnold, please see attached invoice. Thanks. Beautiful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click send on this particular email, and that email is going to be sent to me. It's going to mark the invoice as sent. So if I go back into Xero and I just refresh this tab a couple of times, sometimes it can take up to 30 seconds. In this case, you can see it's got that sent stamp in here now. I can mark it as unsent if needed. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the opportunity and we're going to have a look at the account. So one of the items that I didn't cover off a little earlier on that I skipped over, if we were to go to the opportunity into the details tab and we scroll down, you'll now notice as part of the page layouts, it has in fact added a breadwinner section in here. So per opportunity, you can see how much is due, how much is overdue, how much is paid by the customer, and if there is anything in draft. If I had to go to the account and go to the details tab and scroll down, what you'll notice is there is a new breadwinner section in here. And this breadwinner section will give you an overall view of everything that's happened with that customer. This will include all invoices and all draft invoices that have been created, paid. If there's any amounts being credited, that will come over from Salesforce. If there is unallocated credits, so on and so forth, all that information will come in as well. And of course, on the account in the related tab, we can see that invoice is there. And if I had to go to the opportunity and have a look at the related list, we can see the invoice appears in there as well. So now we've got a full 360 view of that particular invoice on the opportunity and the account. Now that we've gone ahead, created this invoice, I'm now going to reconcile this and mark this as paid. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to say date paid was today. It was essentially paid to, we don't have everything set up. So I'm going to say, let's get paid into that particular equity account. I'm going to put in the reference number, manual transaction, and I'm going to add a payment value in here. And before you know it, this is going to reconcile itself in Xero. And I can go ahead and send a payment receipt from Xero once this is reconciled. This is always done by your accounting team, by the way. So if I go view the invoice now inside Xero, the invoice will actually come up as paid. It's got an amount due of 0, and it was in fact marked as paid today. Now, the sync back from Xero is probably going to take about 5 to 15 minutes, depending on the sync interval, and of course, what's happening inside of your Salesforce and your Xero org. But that will write back. While we wait for that to write back, I just thought I'd put through a couple of things for you guys to take into consideration. Once you have created an invoice in Salesforce, if you need to make amendments or changes, you can go ahead and void the invoice or ask your accounting team to void that invoice and create a new one with all the correct details. Or you need to make sure that you reach out to your accounts team to and ensure they make the changes in Xero. Because once you create the invoice, any changes that you make inside the invoice record in Salesforce are not going to be reflected back onto Xero because there may be some changes. So this also allows for you guys to, as a business, to ensure that your source of truth for your accounts is always your accounting system. In this case, it's Xero, because you can connect that to your bank account and a few other different payment gateways and so on and so forth. So just bear that in mind with some of those considerations. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this particular invoice, and let's see if that has gone ahead and synced back now. It still says a status of due. So I'm going to go ahead, pause this recording, and we're going to come back in a couple of minutes more to have a look and see the status of this invoice being paid. And then we'll be able to see that reflected inside Salesforce as well. Beautiful. So I've just gone ahead and refreshed the page now, and we can see that this invoice is paid. It's gone ahead and recorded a payment transaction with a date and a reference number that we can, of course, have a look at inside Salesforce. And we can see the amount due is set to 0 now because the full amount is paid. Again, if there was a partial payment made, that would reconcile the partial payment and tell you the remaining amount that's due. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the opportunity. I'm going to refresh the tab. I'm going to go back to the account and refresh the tab. And we're going to first check the opportunity detail record. And straight away, you can see that this invoice is now marked with a green flag, which means it's been paid. And if I scroll down, it now says this was the initial total amount invoiced from this opportunity, and this is the full amount paid minus the tax, of course. And if I go to the account, as a result, we can see the invoice is reflected on there as well in the related list as paid. And if I keep scrolling down further, we can now see the Breadwinner account status is fully paid, and we have a breakdown of everything that was paid and what day it was paid. Again, there's a very complex model around Breadwinner. We can cover this in one of the future episodes, but I hope this particular episode has allowed you to see how you can have your accounting system connected with Salesforce and start to ensure that all of your data and your source of truth does become Salesforce for your sales agents and for your support agents, for your business operations and C-level executives, allowing you to view everything there is to around the accounting piece, at least as part of this episode, when it comes to your customers. Thanks. Hey guys, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe to the channel if you like it. Also, please don't forget to go ahead and share this with anyone that you think might benefit from it, especially all those brand new up and coming Salesforce gurus. And as always, you can find some more episodes right here.